Today, we'll start again with prompt engineering, but this time I just want to, give you a brief, we'll walk through it again from the concluding part of last class. And we talked about prompt engineering as the art of writing, refining, and optimizing your prompts in a structured way. The goal is to perfect the interaction between humans and AI. Remember that in our previous classes, we've talked about how the goal of artificial intelligence is to replicate human intelligence. We want to replicate human intelligence, and we want to do better than humans. Now we have the tool, we have the model built, everything is ready. Our part of the deal is to interact and engage with the model, such a way that we are getting the right response and we are able to get the right answer that we are looking for. And we talked about why we have prompt engineers, the goal being to be able to continuously monitor and update prompts, report findings, and also to act as thought leaders in the field of generative AI. So what we're trying to do is, of course, like I explained the other time, we are trying to control the output. And if we don't control it, it can be a big challenge. And also part of why prompt engineering is very important is we want to get accurate and engaging responses such that we are able to produce the content that we're trying to produce, and that we're able to get the right knowledge or information from AI as we are looking for it. And then also we talked about computational linguistics, how AI has evolved from the regular chatbot to now more advanced tools that we are able to get the right information and is able to actually understand human language and be able to process it. And we talked about how AI is breaking down what we type in, the text that we input into AI. It's broken down into different forms. We talked about tokenization, we talked about named entities, and we talked about lemmatization and also stemming. We will get, and also we talked about natural language processing and how natural language processing also works. And then we explained, these four key principles. In fact, that is the bottom line. That is what guides how AI is able to understand human language, which is named entity recognition. And we also talked about tokenization, which is the process of breaking down a large text into small units, words, punctuation marks, and all of that. We break them down into that small units that is now, then we now do what you call stemming, which is like reducing the words to their root forms, and also understanding the context that is lemmatization. And then I also provided examples. We talked about running, which came from run. We talked about run, and also which came from run. So run being the stem for running, run, and all of that. And then we talked about, of course, like I explained, the way that AI breaks down your text into tokens, and then is able to pick entities from the words, from the broken down words. Challenges of natural language processing. We talked about ambiguity in language, and also I talked about sarcasm, jokes, the cultural norms and nuances that AI is not really, it may not necessarily understand, except that the part of the training when the model was being trained, except that it was part of that training, then nuances and cultural context may not be explicitly clear to AI, and that's also part of what AI engineers are grappling with today, to ensure that we focus on ethics, we focus on ensure that there are no marginalized communities or people in AI. And of course, we started to all now get into the different AI models that exist today. We talked about ChatGPT, different models that have been out. And as of 2 weeks ago, we now have the GTP4V, which is the vision model that was released recently that is now what you call multimodal. Let me open up our class notes and talk about what that means for us. Start a new whiteboard. So allow anyone with the link to view and continue. So this is the whiteboard for the class, and I will just explain briefly what multimodal means in this case. Multimodal in the sense that is able to do image, is able to do text, is able to do audio, and it can do image to text, it can do text to image, it can also do video. Okay, so that's the whole idea of multimodal. Multimodal in the sense that there are different modes. You can do image to text, image to different forms of media, text, audio, and video. Okay, so back to the presentation, and there are different models produced by different AI organizations. And in fact, these, I would say, are the main drivers of artificial intelligence that you have there today. There are other modes of AI. So when you read AI, sometimes you read about AI tools. AI tools are different from AI models. So you can have OpenAI. OpenAI owns GPT-3, 3.5, and 4.0. Google has BAT. I would show you quickly. This is BAT. BAT is the version, also is the model that I use often for my writing tasks. I use it a lot for writing. I use Dark-Team. Yes, good. So I use BAT a lot. BAT, if you want to use it, you would need to download Opera VPN. It's very important. And then once you download Opera with VPN, I think in the last class, I explained that process to you guys. Please, do you remember how to do that? Just in note. Do you guys still remember how to set up? Okay. Someone said I use it without VPN. Someone said yes, sir. Okay, good. So I use BAT a lot. In fact, I prefer to use, if you're doing anything that is computational, I use either BAT or ChatGPT 4.0, the paid version. But if you're using anything that has to do with, if you're doing anything that has to do with writing, I go for Claude. Claude seems to be the best tool that I use for writing. And I will, in a moment, take you into how to use Claude to do your writing. So let's go back to our presentation. So like I just explained, there is model, and there are also other AI tools. And I will explain to you what's the difference between when you hear OpenAI and then you hear GPT 4.0 or 3.5, or when you hear something about Anthropic being the vendor and Claude. What is the difference? And when you now hear tools like Writesonic, Jasper AI, all of these other AI tools that are then leveraged on the model, what is the difference? Let me quickly do a sketch of that difference between the what you call, okay, so you have the model, you have the vendor, and then you have AI tools. Okay, so we will do a quick analysis. So under the AI tools, you can have Jasper, you have copy.ai, you have different AI tools. If you have used any of these AI tools, you can just maybe respond in the chat box. Let's see which of the AI tools you have used recently. If you have used any of the different AI tools out there. I think now I have talked about Jasper AI, I've talked about copy.ai. Which other one have you used before? Okay, somebody said morph.ai. Okay. Any other AI tools that you've used? Somebody said Tom. Okay. I haven't used these ones because I haven't heard of them. Somebody said Tiny Wow. Wow. There are quite a few of them, but there is model. Okay, so under model, I explained that we have some like Claude, we have GPT 4.0, there is also 3.5. Any other, like we just have it explained here, we have Llama, we have Palm, we have BAT. So let's pull it back up. So we have Llama, we have Palm, all of that. Those are models. Now, when think of so let's create something like, yes, that's a new frame. Let's work with this and think of these things as, so there is the model. Then think of the AI tools. Model, and think of the vendors. Okay, or let's even go back to the previous slide. So think of the model as the fuel. So I'm just trying to relate this thing to how fuel, and think of the vendors. Now, in this case, think of them as how you would call the refineries, where the fuel is being produced. And think of all these AI tools as the car, vehicle, car that is using fuel to drive. So, in fact, I would add in mind here. Okay, now why am I expanding this side of things is that, so look at, for example, Jasper. Jasper AI, for example, or copy.ai, these guys are built on a specific model, right? They use maybe 4.0, some of them use 3.5. In fact, there is also a neuron writer, okay? Neuron writer. There is creator.ai. There's creator.ai. I think there are quite a lot of them. So think of them as vehicles. Think of the model as fuel, and think of the vendor the vendors as refineries. So in this case, I described OpenAI. Okay, and I said Anthropic. Okay, Google. These are examples of vendors of different AI models. Now, I would explain how this all fits together in one example in a moment. So I'm going to go to my own service called Typing Mind. So I use Typing Mind a lot for writing, especially if I need to write something that's a little bit technical. And what happens, just quickly, I will show you how it all fits together. Why I call these as vehicles. I hope you can all see my screen. Okay, so these are all like my folders in all my writing stuff. Okay, now consider I put in here my license key and I put in here my API, my license key and my API key. The API key that I put in here, I got it from Claude. So I would go to let's say Anthropic, for example. So yes, I just want to quickly use this as an example to you. So Anthropic is the service provider, or what you call in this case the vendor. They created Claude now, and Claude is currently available for free. I use the free version, but then I can get API, right? So if you look at their product, you can get you can talk to them and say you want you can get and create your own API from Claude. You can request access. You put in your information and tell what you want to use it for. You submit your request, right? And they will. You can see their pricing here. This is for Anthropic, right? And their pricing model for 100,000 tokens. Remember that I told you something about tokenization, and that how these models interpret your text is basically based on tokens, which means that if you're writing a request, they break down your request into tokens, and that tokens is used to calculate how much cost, like is used to check what processing needs to be done. And it's also the same thing that is used to calculate the cost of your usage. Let me go back to my presentation here. Notice here that in this section is showing how much I have used. I can as well also show you from OpenAI. So let's go into OpenAI. Let's go into login to OpenAI. And I will show you my own interface there. I use the API of OpenAI. And let's try to get into, say, for example, so here you can click on this and it will take you to your API keys. Let's go to API keys. And here you can see the different API. This is the documentation. This is your API reference. And this is the playground. You can actually also use their playground. So basically what I'm talking about here is that there are different API keys that you can use. And let's look at, so here is talking about the amounts that I've spent so far. So every time you use open API, here I put in my API keys, and every time I make a request, so let's do something here. Let's say, because this one is connected directly to my API keys. Now, there are differences. So let me do a quick explanation. So now these API keys, they are different. Using your API is different from using ChatGPT directly. So this is me using ChatGPT and using their interface. So it works this way, but I can also connect directly to my API keys. I use my API keys to connect directly to ChatGPT, which is why I'm using the API keys here, because I have different functions that I use different tools. So like I said, TypingMind is an example of a vendor who is using different models, who can use different models to work. So here I have, for example, where I could connect my, I think TypingMind is free. You can also try and register. I think you can use it for free for a limited number of queries daily. But you can see here that I can decide to change the model. So here I can use different AI models. I think up to like 6 or 7. I can use Claude 2, I can use Claude 1, I can use Claude Instant, I can use ChatGPT 3.5, I can use ChatGPT 3.5 that can take up to 16,000 tokens. And I'll tell you how that tokenization works. I will show you just in a bit. Let's do a test of something. Let's say just a common request. What is, for example, is the meaning of love at first sight? I mean, let's just goof around a little bit and see how tokenized. I just want to use this to explain tokenization and all of these things to you in a moment. So I send this. What is the meaning of love at first sight? Now, notice something here. As soon as I sent that request, he immediately gave me an estimated cost. He's saying that I've used 624 tokens, right? Now, it says current context length is 175 tokens, but I've used so far an estimated cost of 624 tokens, which is this. That's the total cost. And just to see how the tokens work, it says GPT-4 3.5 allows a maximum of 4,000 tokens per chat, and GPT-4 allows maximum of 8,192 tokens per chat in the 8K model, and 32,000 tokens in the 32K model. I just wanted to use this to explain to you how this works. Now, in this current case where it's saying that I've used 624 tokens, it means, so this text that I passed in, that is, what is the meaning of love at first sight? If you break it down, if you tokenize this will be 1, 2, 3. So let's just copy this and take it into our, into this, and let's create another page. Okay, we have this one from before. Let's create a new one and paste here. So this, if you are breaking down into tokens, will look something like this. Not exactly, but will look something like this. Meaning now, so it would do like this. It would take love as 1 at, so it will break down all of them into, example of how this tokenization works. So on average, how many tokens do you think this will cost me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? In fact, this would also be a token, but usually these are just so something like this, right? And then it will figure out my request based on these tokens that I have here, and then use that to estimate how much cost this is costing me to make a request. So great. So I believe that analogy helps you to understand the whole concept of tokens and how it works. And that 624 tokens is also in addition to this. That is the input plus the output that we're having here, right? So plus the instructions that is also passing into this, everything all sent in together. So I have here 1, 2. So if you break all of this down again, plus this, plus the system and everything all together, then gives you what you then adds up into what forms your token. Let's go forward back to the presentation. Now, I also mentioned something about best practices. I said good prompts save time and avoid wasted tokens. So I think I just explained what I was trying to say about tokens. Now you understand what tokens. So going forward, when we mention tokens, you know that it is basically breaking down our text, the full text, into units of the text, so that the system can then identify the named entities within the text, and then it can start to do stemming and lemmatization. That's creating the meaning of each of those words within the context of the sentence, and then looking at how each of those words are related to then construct the meaning based on the rules of linguistics that he already knows. So see how all of these things are then coming together. We have talked about computational linguistics. We've talked about tokenization. We talked about natural language processing, how they work. But all of these now coming together helps you to understand how AI understands your text. It is basically breaking down into tokens, understanding the named entities, understanding the stem for each word, understanding the lemma of how the words are related within the context, and then applying linguistic rules that are already embedded in the model, so that it understands, okay, if I have this plus this plus this is likely to be what is next, or this is likely to be the meaning of what you're saying. And then we also talked about intuition. You have to apply intuition when you're practicing prompt engineering. Also, I talked about adopting a persona, specifying the format, using an iterative prompting and all of that. And I talked about do not use leading answers. Do not try to suggest the answer for the AI. You are allowed. You should be doing like what the format should look like, but not what the answer is. Do not be suggestive, because at the end of the day, it will bias the results that you're getting. Again, also another thing to avoid is limit the scope of your query. Do not pass too long prompts that it then loses or confuses the AI. An example of using I'll get into all of that. I think in the next 2 slides we'll start to get into the different types of prompts and how to apply them. Then I talked about specific details in prompts to avoid time loss and also getting frustrated if you are not providing enough detail like that is specific and concise for the AI to be able to understand what you're actually looking for. Think about AI or large language models as a pool, as an ocean, and you are trying to find something at the bottom of the ocean. For example, you need to know where to look. You need to know, you can't just say, oh, I lost something in the ocean. You need to know specifically which area of the ocean. If you're looking for something in the forest, that you need to know which direction. You need to know. That's why we have Google Maps, or we have different types of maps to give us like a direction when we're going somewhere. You put in your address and then it takes you directly to where you're going. So you have to use your prompt to provide details that then guides the AI. So the details of your prompt are like what you could call the coordinates of the map. So because it helps the AI to know where in the knowledge base is calling from based on your request. So I also talked about specific prompts yield more accurate and desired responses because, of course, you are providing the details. I also just talked about length. Avoid using lengthy prompts. Be concise, simple, and straight to the point. And also, do not try to generalize your prompts. For example, if you're writing articles as a writer now, you tend to fall into a trap of using just one prompt as a do-all kind of prompt. It doesn't work that way. You have to understand that if you're writing specific type of article for different type of audience, you have to prompt in a specific way that is able to get the AI to give the kind of response that you're looking for. So now we'll start talking about different prompt types. And before I go into that, do you guys have any question for me to quickly address it before I go into that? So now we'll start some practical stuff. And I want to be sure that we are all on the same page. I think I already answered this. Okay, is copy.ai open source? No, copy.ai is not open source, and copy.ai is an AI company. So you could consider them as a vendor who is using the what I just described before now. So let's go back to my explanation. So we're talking from the same page. So you could consider them as the vendor. No, not the vendor now, sorry, the vehicle. So think about a car. Before you can drive a car, you need to buy fuel, right? You need to buy fuel. And see these models as the fuel that runs your car. So it could be Claude, it could be GPT 4.0, it could be 3.5. So the AI tools, Jasper, copy.ai, typingmind, neural writer, creator, they don't work on, they don't have a mind of their own. Their mind, remember that we talked about AI being replicating the human mind, right? So that is, the model is like the fuel that is powering, that is replicating the mind. What the different AI tools is what they are doing is to use the mind to work. So imagine Jasper using the mind in a different way, and copy.ai using it in a different way to fit. So they all have different use cases. Some of them say they help you to write, for example, blog posts better. Some of them, they claim that they want to help you to write, to make videos better. Some want to help you to make images like Midjourney and co. Of course, those ones also, it's a different ballgame entirely. But in the context of what we're talking about, what they are doing is they are calling on these different AI models, these foundation models or large language models, are calling on them and using the APIs, to produce information or to generate content that is based on what you are looking for, but tailored to specific use cases. For example, typingmind, I use typingmind for a lot of functions, but inside typingmind, I could use different, for example, different, I could call, let's open a new chat. For example, new chat. So here I could call in and say, I want to use Claude, right? Just like when you go to a filling station, for example, you could decide to buy your fuel from, say, Total, or you could go to, name it, MRS, all the different, vendors that sell fuel, right? The point there is that it's the same fuel, or maybe a little bit different in terms of the car, maybe a diesel engine or petrol engine, right? So you go to the fuel station and you decide whether it's diesel engine. If your car is a diesel engine, then you're buying diesel, and if your car is a petrol engine, you're buying petrol. It's the same thing. All the models are like fuels for your car, and the model you use depends on the type of car you are driving. So if you start to think about it in this way, you understand it better, how different models help you to perform different tasks, right? For example, if you are doing images, the model that you use for images is different from the model that you use if you are using text. And it will be different, of course. They're now just the way OpenAI has come with the 4V, which is now multimodal, and now we can now do multiple functions with it. But they have built it in such a way that you can handle different types of models. But the ultimate goal that, like I'm trying to tell you, is that different AI tools are like vehicles, and they run full, and those full are from different models of AI, and those models are created by different AI organizations, or you could call them, in this case, AI vendors. So maybe now I'll take, do you guys want to have like a 5-minute break, or I should continue? Just let me know if you want like a 5-minute break to like a recess, get some water. If you want, fine. And if you want me to continue straight up, I can do that as well. Just say, okay, you can continue. Okay, I will assume that this is yes, I should continue. Okay, good. Now, we will go into zero-shot prompting. What does this mean? I can tell you that large language models are, you could call them zero-shot reasoners, in the sense that you send me a query, I give you back your response, straight up. And the query are pretty simple. An example of zero-shot prompt. So let's go. I will open my ChatGPT. Okay, so now I'm using ChatGPT. I remember that in the last class, I put you through something called custom instructions, right? I explained custom instructions as part of the, the fundamental best practices that we should always follow. And we talked about the different functions of custom instructions. It helps you to tailor the responses that you're going to get from ChatGPT. In this case, we're using ChatGPT directly. We're not using vendors. I'm using ChatGPT, so I'm on the OpenAI environment. So I give it sort of like what you call the custom instructions that helps it to train it so it understands how to respond. For example, I said in my own custom instructions, make sure that you don't follow AI pattern, but articles should be really simple, should make sense, and should be as written by a grade 8 level writer, aiming for a flash reading ease score of 66. You always bold the key entities in your article. I can as well just delete this. It doesn't really matter. I can as well say that always include relevant and similar entities in relevant entities. Okay, so I'll put relevant entities uh, similar to the query in your response. Okay, so why did I add this? So, you know, in my explanation before, I talked to you about entities, named entities. Now, when you're writing or you are using AI, there's an important aspect which I mentioned, which is named entities. Entities are very important, and including relevant entities similar to the topic of the query in your response is also very important as a custom instruction. So it knows that, okay, when I am responding, this is how I should respond. Or, okay, so actually this one should go, because this is part of response, I would move this actually down to here, actually. Okay, so remember that here it says, where are you based? What do you do for your work? What are your hobbies and interests? What subjects can you talk about for hours? What are some goals you have? You don't have to respond to everything. But I wanted to point you to something called flesh reading is score. Let's just do a quick Google search to understand what that means. And reason why, if you're using ChatGPT, you should consider adding it. Now, this is a quick response from Google, and it says, what is flesh reading in score? Score 60 to 70, easily understood by 13 to 15-year-old students. 50 to 60, fairly difficult to read. 30 to 50, difficult to read, best understood by college graduates. 0 to 30, very difficult to read, best understood by university graduates. Now, the reason why I always stay around the middle between 60 and 70 is that I want my content to be easily understood from this age bracket. I want it to be easy. I want it to be simple. So let's also look at, is 75 a good readability score? Let's just start from there. Okay, so this one says scoring between, okay, yeah, you see now, I should actually adjust that to 70 because it says scoring between 70 to 80 is equivalent, right, to school grade level 8. This means text should be fairly easy for an average adult to read. So I'm going to up my flesh reading score to 70, thereabouts. You should do the same if you are good. Now, do you understand what I'm trying to do here? I'm giving ChatGPT an understanding of how I want who I am. I'm asking you to write like a grade 8 level writer, right? Who wants to achieve a flesh reading score of 70. So I want it to be easy for an average adult to understand and to be able to relate with. So, having said that, few short prompt or zero short prompt. An example of zero short prompt, like I described in my first class, is what is the name of the president of USA? In this case, let's even put United, so let's make it clear, because USA can mean different things. States of America. What you get? Let's see the response. Good. Good. Now, see, one of the response is giving me here says, as of my last update in January 2022, Joe Biden was the president of the United States. However, my information might be out of date, so I recommend checking a reliable current news source for the most up-to-date information. So I'll do a little tweak to this. Let's do a new chat. This time around, we will use browse with Bing. So, okay, so let me quickly explain what's happening here and why I'm changing that. So what it's doing, if you're using the default model, is that it's basically using the stored information that it was trained with. So like I said, data is anything and everything. These models are usually trained with large, sets of data that are usually, you could call them the internet data. That's the information that's on the internet as of a cut-off date. So they collect all that information, tokenize them, feed them into the model, and use that to train this model so it understands all the information that's available. Of course, contextually. So when you write a request or you pass a question to a large language model like ChatGPT 3.5, 4.0, what you're actually doing is they're asking you to give you that response based on what it knows. So it will basically check its own data set and give you a response based on what it already knows as of today. However, if I change it to Bing, it means I'm saying your information checked against what's also on the internet recently. So let us use the same, the same, the same query that we just passed just now. Let's refresh. Okay, yeah. So let's use this same query. Let's go back. This time around, let us use Bing. Let's see if we get the same response. Notice that it says browsing. So it's currently using the information that's on the internet and will then use that to respond to us. Notice how the difference is, notice the difference in the response. This time around, it has browsed the internet and it has come back with a response to say the current president of the United States as of 2023 is Joe Biden. He is the 46th president and has been leading the country through challenging times with a commitment to unity. Now it's giving me too much information. But notice a few things. It's easy to understand. The grammar is simple. The sentences are simple, and it's also giving you references to this. You can't do this if you are not using the 4.0 paid version. Notice what it's doing here is telling me these are the custom instructions that it is working with. So you notice that for every query that I now pass, it will first implement my custom instruction in addition to my query to make sure that the response is custom and it is tailored to what I asked it or what I tailored it to be as an AI. So now that's in short, that is zero-shot prompting. It is simple, it's straightforward, one question, and based on that question, his reasoning capacity is based on that question at that point in time. Zero-shot prompting. Now, few-shot prompting. This is like you have passed a request. Let us say, I want to do an example of a few-shot prompting. Let's say I'm trying to find the the tallest tower. I'm trying to find the name of the tallest tower or one of the most popular tower in, say, Paris, for example. And I don't just want to ask you that question. I want to pass along a few set of prompts to guide that process. So I will go like this. So I'm trying to find a tower. It's one of the most popular tower in the capital of France. So what I would do is I would say, what is the capital of France? The capital of France is Paris. It is a beautiful city known for its art. Now, notice something, that what it's doing here is that it is now giving me all the famous landmarks, including Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame Cathedral, the Louvre Museum. Those are one of the most beautiful places. If you go to Paris, you must get there. Notre Dame Cathedral is one of the best places you want to go, especially if you are really into history and you want to know about the history of Paris, Catholics, the Roman Empire, and all of those things. You should go to Paris and also learn from there as well. And it's also it's talking about the Louvre Museum, and where you can also look at the Mona Lisa. Fine, you're welcome to visit. But the point here is, I've asked the question, it has given me the name of the capital, but it has gone ahead to give me additional information. Now, the next prompt is, what is the name of the most popular tower in Paris? Okay, so, and it goes ahead and says, oh, the most popular tower in Paris is Eiffel Tower. And it goes ahead to tell me about the height, of the tower and stuff. So basically, this is how you do few short prompting. That is, you ask a few questions, trying to get to your answer. But because you don't want to, for example, get what you could call like an answer that is not concrete, that is not detailed, you notice here that the information that you're getting here, like it's a marvel of the 19th century engineering, blah, blah, blah. Even though it gave me Eiffel Tower here, it didn't give me the details of Eiffel Tower here. Remember that what I was just looking for here was the capital of France. And then after knowing that the capital of France is Paris, what I'm actually looking for is this. But I wanted it to describe Paris first, and then ask the next question, and then ask the next question. So few short prompting is like a sequence of prompts that you pass in so you can get to the final detailed answer. But you see, you get those answers in a detailed sequence. So that's the whole concept of few short prompting. That is prompts that you're passing across to the AI, step by step, to get to your ultimate answer, but that you want to extract as much information at each step as possible. That is the whole concept of getting to this. I could now go ahead and say, describe the artwork, or describe, for example, Eiffel Tower and the beauty of the artwork. Why is Eiffel Tower important? So you see, I started from the country. Say, from this country, give me the capital. from the capital, give me the most important tower. And from there, I say, go ahead and tell me about this Eiffel Tower. What's important about it? What's the beauty of the artwork in that Eiffel Tower? And it goes ahead to give me that information. Eiffel Tower, named after its designer, Gustav Eiffel, is a remarkable piece of architectural art and engineering marvel, standing tall in the heart of Paris. Its iron lattice structure and the meticulous craftsmanship represent a significant moment in the history of construction and design. So you see, goes ahead to tell me about what happened, how it was built, and why it is important. So, so that process, what we have just followed, is called few shot prompting. So you go step by step to get into the goal. Don't just with the few shot prompting strategy, you are not just passing the entire question here in your first prompt, right? You go step by step. The whole idea is break down your request or your query or what you're asking for into pockets of knowledge that you think you're looking for, right? So you want to know about Eiffel Tower, but you already know maybe Eiffel Tower is in France. So you start from that knowledge, right? You start breaking down the ambiguity of your request. Remember I told you something about AI being, like it finds it hard to deal with, ambiguity. What you're trying to do is follow a systematic format when you are querying AI. Make sure that what you're trying to learn, you are able to break it down into simple requests and go step by step when prompting. So you break it down into small pieces of information and ask it those small pieces of information one after the other. That way, the AI will give you better information, more clear information. Look at how it produced even a lengthier response here. Looking at my request, describe Eiffel Tower and the beauty of the artwork. Why is Eiffel Tower important? So you see, and I can go ahead and start to dig further. So if I'm writing something about Eiffel Tower, I won't just go straight. I know that Eiffel Tower is in Paris. So I want to start from where is Paris? So Paris is in France. So I go to France and say, okay, so what's the capital of Paris? Of France, and it says it's Paris. Okay, what is the most important tower? If the most important tower is not Eiffel Tower, and I'm really trying to write about Eiffel Tower, I would then say compare Eiffel Tower with this most important or the most beautiful tower in Paris, and tell me the difference, tell me the relevance. So that's how I go. You don't just go ahead and just write one prompt. You go step by step in a methodical format to help you get the right information that you're looking for. So let's go back here. And so you understand what future short prompting is right now. It's a step-by-step methodical prompting process, which is you break down the information you're seeking for into smaller buckets of requests in a sequential order and start prompting one step by step, using the information from the first step as a guide to the next prompt that you're passing it, and making those prompts as simple and short and concise as possible. That's your few shot prompting method. So next, we'll talk about chain of thought. Now, I just explained a few short prompting to you, then chain of thought. What we have just done is what you could also consider chain of thought. Now, the difference where you could say what then is the difference between few short prompting and chain of thought is, for few short prompting, you say like you break it down into small buckets. of requests that you're asking, and you do it in a sequential order. But the chain of thought is that, say I'm trying to write um, an article, or I'm trying to write an application to, say, I'm writing an article, for example, about the history of Biafra in Nigeria. Or let's say I want to write about the history of Nigeria, or I want to talk about the history of Lagos. The way I go about it is I want to make sure that I follow a chain of thought in that process, all linked together. So I may not know exactly what I want to write about, but I may decide to break down that information or what I'm trying to find into, into simple format, and then start asking AI to give me that information one after the other. So let's try an example of a chain of thoughts. Now there is no, I would say, no fast or hard rule about this in real sense, but I will try to give you some clarity into. So say I want to write about the history of Nigeria. I would say, for example, when was Nigeria formed? Okay, I could go like this. I would like to write about the history of Nigeria. Provide a step-by-step information that I need to cover under the history of Nigeria. Now, notice that here I'm acting as if I don't really know about it. So I'm completely open for AI to give me the first set of information. And based on that first information, I would then iterate and optimize before I continue. So notice here I've said I would like to write about the history of Nigeria. So I'm saying, please provide a step-by-step information that I need to cover under the history of Nigeria. So let's see what AI is able to come up with in this case. So notice here it says browsing about the history of Nigeria overview and all of that. And based on that, it will give me a context or some information that I might want to use, or that I, based on the response it's going to give me, I will then consider that as a guide. So it starts to, give me some information about it. Say prehistoric period, early human settlement dating back to 100,000 years ago, Nok culture and the early Iron Age, showcasing advanced societal structures and metallurgy skills and all of that. And the next thing I want to ask is, okay, here is a suggested outline based on the step-by-step breakdown of the history of Nigeria. Okay, so I may then, go and pick one of this and say, write about the early human settlements in Nigeria, dating back to over 100,000 years ago. Notice I've not done any writing at this point. I am just trying to find that information. And it says, oh, the early human settlements in Nigeria can be traced back to 100,000 years ago. During this period, ancient humans lived in the region and their presence evidenced through archaeological findings. There's a bit more about these early settlements and starts to give you information about these settlements and all of that. Another thing you could consider is, of course, references. So I think here it's providing links to some external resources that you might want to look at. There is a BBC World News there. There is a brief history of Nigeria somewhere around there. There is also the, quite a few references, about 3 or 4. And then here it has also provided additional information about archaeological evidence and all that. So this just gives you like a brief of how you do chain of thought. So the chain of thought here is you necessarily don't have to know everything. So you start at first to be as general as possible. And you start to go step by step, writing your prompt and your request. Notice that the prompting here is specific to the task that I'm trying to perform. So I'm trying to go methodically, one step after the other, going based on the information that I'm getting. Now, I could go back and say, not culture and the early Iron Age. What about this? Maybe I might also write another prompt and say, okay, sorry, give me information about not culture and the early Iron Age in Nigeria. Okay, so I might say, provide additional detailed information about Nok culture and the early Iron Age in Nigeria. It's a very simple process. What you're trying to do is you're trying to, elicit that information step by step. But your prompt, what you're asking for is based on what you know, and you go again, you extract more information. You go again, you seek for more information. So there you have it. Nok culture is a significant and early civilization in what is now modern Nigeria, dating back to the Iron Age between the 5th century and the 2nd century. There is a detailed examination of the Nok culture and its contributions during the early Iron Age. Now, you would never have gotten this much information if all you did with your own search is to just say, oh, write me an article about the history of Nigeria. You will never have gone this far. You wouldn't have. Okay, so we can try it. Let's write a prompt and just so you know the difference between following a step-by-step process that we're discussing now, which is chain of thought, versus just dumping one query and say, write about the history of Nigeria. So let's open a new chat. This time around, let's just say, write an article about the history of Nigeria. Now, so let's see if we will now compare the two information that we've gotten from the one that is more detailed and going step by step versus the one that is just giving you one prompt and asking you to do everything at once. And you can start to see the difference in the quality of the response that you're going to get. After this, after we've done the comparison, then I will just write, try to describe a little bit about the importance or the advantage of doing this step-by-step chain of thought prompting and why why you should do the same as well. So let's just do a quick check. So prompting and trying to write content is basically that's what we are doing right now. And I would suggest that you maybe do the same as well from your side. If you have access to ChatGPT, you should try to do the same. Let me see if I can call. Let's bring everyone here. Okay, somebody says. Please just to check. You can see that somebody was struggling to hear me. Unfortunately, I didn't. Can you all still hear me? Okay, good. That's fine. Okay, so let's see what information. And here you're going to get all sorts of garbage, you know, big grammar. Okay. So if notice what we have here. These are just half-baked concussions that you're going to get. Compare this response. So let's just do a quick comparison. So you understand my perspective and why doing a chain of thought approach is a better way to do prompting. So we will open ChatGPT again, and this time around we will compare it with okay, good. Look at how much information you get here versus what we got here. In this one on the right, we first started with the one on the right is a chain of thought approach where we go step by step. We ask the first query to be more general and to give us like an idea of what the outline should be, what we should be looking at based on the step-by-step breakdown of the history of Nigeria. Versus the one where we do just one short prompt and boom, gives us one sort of like what you could call a concocted answer, versus the one that is more detailed and provides more context about the archaeological evidence, the early human communities, the interaction with the environment, development of our culture and society, and transition to agriculture. And then we said, okay, provide additional detailed information about the Nok culture and the early Iron Age in Nigeria, and start to give us about the origin, the time frame, terracotta sculpture, the ones from Benin, and start to give us like much deeper response. It's the same AI, but one is giving us a better response. The other is giving us a concocted, tried to capture big grammar and everything. The bottom line is break away from this style of writing, start to go in the direction of breaking down your thought process. You need to first break down your thoughts and try to get AI to give you some ideas and suggestions. And from there you go, you start to continue your prompting and writing better content. Cool. So, so that is chain of thought. I want you to know that what I'm trying to summarize here is not just enough. I can tell you that I can take a class on chain of thought the whole day, and it will still not be enough, right? Role prompting. So, what do you mean by role prompting? So, role prompting is a style of prompt where you inform the AI about who you are, about or the role of the AI. You ask it to assume a role, and that's where you start to talk about persona Okay, so I'm just going to call up our board, and I will go to create another slide. Okay, yes, here, and I will talk about role prompting. So under role prompting, this is where you use persona. Persona in this case talks about, for example, what role do you want the AI to assume? What kind of characteristics do you want the AI to assume? So, for example, the role of the person, let's say persona role, and in this case could be equal to, for example, a software engineer. The role could be, for example, an SEO writer. You know, SEO in this case means search engine optimization. Okay. It could also be the role of a advisor, let's say a relationship coach. There could be different types of roles. Let me just give you a quick overview of the different roles that I would normally deploy. And this is, of course, from a different tool. So you can have a customer support agent. It could be a mindfulness coach. It could be a product manager. It could be a professional salesman. It could be a life hacker. It could be a professional chef. For example, if you are the type that creates content around cooking, for example, you could want to use that role as a professional chef and start to. But when you're describing the role, you need to actually describe the role in detail, which is, okay, for example, you're a professional chef, you write, you cook very well, you prepare meals in a variety of cuisines, and you could explain that the person creates. For example, creates African dishes, European cuisines, maybe Eastern European cuisines. You might want to be very specific about the type of cooking you do, and use that as a way to help the AI to generate, for example, recipe for you if you are a chef, for example. If you're a financial advisor, for example, an example here is a financial advisor who can help you with your financial planning, budgeting, investment advice, retirement planning, and insurance needs. And I can use this as a role. When I'm using this tool, Type in Mind, I use what I call the Langston SEO expert. That's how I crafted it. Let me show you what the role is. So I typed it as a brilliant SEO expert in understanding and generating human-like language, able to perform SEO tasks in a step-by-step manner, contextually and using entities. Having evolved through various iterations and based on transformer architecture, you're trained on vast amounts of text and data and excels in numerous NLP tasks, blah, 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 all of that. So now that is one that I use, right? And I can send you, that will be part of the tools that I will provide access to. Now, unfortunately, because of how difficult we've been, struggling to export our videos to YouTube, so we wanted to just finish. Of course, because of the challenges in Nigeria, my team is in Nigeria, and so to be able to export all of these videos, heavy size, into YouTube has been a little bit challenging because of the strength of internet. So we might be doing that later, maybe next week or maybe towards the end of the whole series. We will upload all of that to YouTube and get everybody to be able to access it. But in the meantime, if we are able to complete it as soon as possible, we will upload it for everyone to be able to access. But this is just an example of how to describe, the persona. So your persona could be a coach, your persona could be an SEO writer. You have to have a definition of your persona, right? Your persona that you are going to be using for custom prompts. So you could use that in, for example, here you create the persona, you bring it to here, and you add it to your custom instructions, right? You can add your persona here, you can add it here. And so basically, when ChatGPT is writing for you, ChatGPT will be considering that persona of yours as a way to control how it does the writing. If you are the one that uses Claude, let me show you a trick of what I use, how I use persona for Claude in a moment. Okay, so what I did with Claude is that one moment is a bit okay, so this is what I do with my Claude. So the first thing I do with Claude is so for example, if I'm applying, so let me give you a very simple use case. When I'm applying to jobs, I have a file called persona that I created for myself. I will, maybe just give you a quick view of that, my persona. So I created a persona, a file called persona. Now in this persona, I described everything I have ever done, like how I have achieved it, my academic qualifications, my personality, the research I have ever done, everything you could think of about me. It took me a long time, right? But, I wrote it out. I have an MBA in innovation management. I have an MSc in sustainable development. I've gone to this school. This was what my research was about. I have, I've listed everything out. Then I went further and I talked about, for example, the types of research I have done, the type of projects I've worked on in the past. Then I also talked about my experience, working on database, business solutions, all of that. And then I also talked about my research, my experience in designing, statistical analysis, all of that. I took my time to write everything else. Took me just one time. So now I have a persona file described. So next time I'm applying to a job, what I do is this. I go in here and I attach that persona file to my application. So because what I want to do is I want AI to know everything about me while applying for that job. So I'm using AI to apply for my job. I upload the persona first. That's the first thing I do. Then the next thing I do is I copy the job advert. So for example, if the advert is on LinkedIn, I go and copy everything about that job advert. So for example, here is one job advert that I copied, that I applied to. I then upload it. So for example, that is also passed as part of my context to the AI. So notice I've given it my experience, my own experience, the job adverts, and I'm also now going to attach my CV, right? So attach my CV. That's the third file that I'm attaching. Now I have AI knows everything about me. And then I start the process of prompting to get AI to write my job application for me. But remember that I am not trying to get AI to do everything for me. What I'm trying to do is to give it the right context, the right information, and then ask it to do specific tasks for me. Let me give you an example of a specific task that we could, consider. Let's use one that has to do with let's see if we have something that is, simple. Okay, let's just use one of this. Okay, yeah, so let's use this one, for example. Now, I just wanted to show you a very simple way of, getting things done in a very step-by-step way. I will just show you now. We'll get to this advanced stage. That's why I said it's not something that you learn in one day, but just look at this prompt. I will type it in your, I will give you this prompt because it's a bit long, but structured in such a way that helps AI to understand what it's going to do for me. So let me put that text here. Okay, so right. Okay, yeah. Now notice what I put in here. If you look at your chart, I said, assume your persona based on the job description below. So I have a section for job description, which I will provide. You performed the job description in your previous role. This is one of the examples of a prompt. It doesn't mean that you will apply this format every time, but this is just an example. Write a new functional CV to target the attached job. Attach the CV as additional background information, which you would optimize based on your persona derived from the job description. Clearly demonstrate in your CV how you meet the requirements for the advertised job. Assign the relevant job functions to the different companies you have worked based on the, okay, I couldn't paste everything all together here. So, based on the companies in your CV, okay. But what I'm trying to give you here is so you understand that this is not something that, this is the first step, which is writing the CV, and it does that. But look at how I went further. It took me about how many prompts? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 9 prompts before I finally arrived at a format and the content that I like. And then I started to bring those contents back into my my CV, back into my cover letter, back into all of the content that I needed to use to apply for the job. So the point I'm trying to say is, when you're using this method that allows you to go from to do like role prompting, you have to decide on the role of the role and the persona that you are looking for, and then ask it to decide on that role, and you ask it to assume that role and ask it to perform the task for you. You also have constraint prompting. Constraint prompting is basically giving it specific constraints. For example, do not use more than 200 words. So those, when you're using constraints, you're providing limitations, right? For constraint, you provide limitations. Limitations in the sense that how many words. So it could be words, it could be, that's the number of words now. Number of words. It could be words to avoid. You could say, write this article, do not use these specific words. So you list the words that you don't want it to include. Say, I don't want you to include some AI grammar, for example, or but you have to be specific about the words. Like maybe you want to include like maybe firstly, secondly, thirdly, all those kind of funny adjectives that you don't want, or descriptions that you don't want to see in your article. You can ask it to remove those words. Then you might also want to limit the you might want to also use the give constraints around say how many paragraphs, for example, that you want it to use. You might also want to constrain it based on the number of sentences, number of words, number of sentences per paragraph that you want to use. So it's all based on limitations. So you write that prompt, you write your prompt, but you provide specific constraints that you don't want that you want to use to limit the output of the AI. Let me give you another example of constraints that I used recently. Let's see if I can find that. Okay, so yeah. So I will show you that now. Okay. So in this article, I said, rewrite the article below by incorporating the missing entities below. Maintain the exact same article length. Do not reduce the length of the article. So basically, I'm saying I want that article rewritten, but I have specific entities that I've identified that I want it to include in the article, and then I give it to it. So that's also an example of a prompt that has specific restrictions that you're passing to it to say, I want you to write this article, but I want you to use these restrictions, this limited to this use this number of words, or be specific about the article length that you're working with. So let's get back to the this. And okay, conversational prompting. Conversational prompting is basically you ask a question, then you ask another question, and you basically are interacting with the AI. It's as simple as that. One question elicits another question, but basically the AI is providing answer, you're asking another one, and you turn it into a conversational prompt, where your prompt is based on the answer that it gives you, and then you ask another question and basically maintain a conversation with the AI. So I will do something just now, if you permit me, just to run you through what I consider as applications. We've just talked through everything we've talked about now is basically part of the applications of AI, which is writing articles, writing content, and providing responses. But one of the things that we have seen about AI in recent times is that it has turned into an arms race, which is like basically everybody struggling. And if I would say that a lot of people are now talking about investment opportunities. How do we invest? Which direction should we look at? I would say if you're looking at investment opportunity, first, focus only on vendors. That is, if you have an opportunity to work with, to invest, and you want to get early investment, focus on AI companies that are creating their own models, not AI companies that are using existing models. That would be your first go-to. Your second go-to would be AI companies that are developing a creative way of using that model, or extending the model, or improving on the model. So there are maybe open AI, open source AI businesses that are now out there that maybe you might look out for as an opportunity to invest. But like I said, focus on those ones that are creating and building their own models, not primarily the ones that are just using the models. They are like, cars buying fuel, and whoever produces that fuel controls the market. That's my first go-to advice, or the way I look at things. Next, I'll talk about the fact that we now have multilingual capabilities as well as multimodal capabilities. So it's not just language anymore. It's not just interpreting sentences alone. It's now involving a lot of other functionalities like interpreting images, like checking, like converting audio to text, like converting text to video. Like we are seeing these applications, for example, we haven't seen how it's still going to be used, for example, in Nollywood, but we are seeing how the possibility of creating images or videos of people that maybe have even died, and you could practically bring them back to life using AI. That is the age where we're in, where I could take your picture and I could turn your picture into a video and put you in a scene where you have never been, and you would wonder, when was I in this place? Well, AI just put you there. You could find yourself going to countries where you haven't been to on AI. So basically, AI is taking us to a new level of applications, of functions, of using our imagination as human beings. But the other thing I wanted to say as we round up is AI is a tool. AI is a tool. It doesn't have sentiment. It doesn't know anything. It's only basic computation. It's just computations. Everything is just computer adding 1 + 1 + 0 and combining all of this together to make decisions, zeros and ones to make decisions. It knows nothing, it doesn't have any sentiment, which means that the responsibility is on us, to make sure that we are ethical in how we use it, that we let people know where you have used AI, or if you have decided if you have decided to use AI, to advise people appropriately or to use AI responsibly. Do not let AI make the full decisions alone. AI should only help us. It should not take over human decision. We still reason better than AI. There are instances AI doesn't have intuition. For example, you might be driving. So now we have cars driven by AI. You understand? That's driverless cars. This advice is still that you sit behind with your eyes wide open, and you do not just recklessly leave AI to drive you like that. And also now we have AI applications. For example, in businesses, you have AI doing deliveries. In some places, they are test running it. AI, you could order pizza, and AI brings pizza to your door. Well, good luck with how people are applying all of these things. But like I said, we still need humans behind AI. Do not let AI make the full decision, which is where I was talking about using AI progressively, writing systematically, breaking down your content into small portions of information, and then using AI to extract that information while you compress all of that information together at the end of the day to make sense. Do not let AI, in fact, it's usually very clear when you have let AI do all of the reasoning by itself, because you will start to see some grammar that you would normally know that this is a computer grammar. There are, of course, applications of AI to food processing, managing logistics. Today, we see AI applications, for example, when you go to a store and you see a pack of fresh tomatoes. Well, the fresh tomatoes that you are seeing today has gone through a bit of some AI involvement. For example, computer vision and computer imaging in separating those fresh tomatoes from the ones that are bad. Tomatoes that have had, when you go to store, you see everything fresh, everything well packaged, no dents, no punctures. It's basically AI has helped at some point to remove the bad ones, and now you have only the good ones in the packaged end product, especially to optimize and speed up the process or the old processing chain. There's also the AI managing our supply chain, making sure that food that is not wasted. That is when you're moving food and you need to know in advance to predict or to estimate your demand levels, and based on that, create supply. for that demand. Like I said, we've just gone through applications of generative AI for content writing. In our subsequent class, we will now go deeper into SEO writing. And this is where I'm going to stop today. I just wanted to let you know that we will now dig deeper further into writing with SEO. That is using AI to extract entities, to find entities that are directly related to the article that you want to write. An example, like you're writing about the history of Nigeria. Now you for example, I've taught you now how to go through the process of your writing in a very systematic way. But there are also additional ways of making sure that you have the right entities that you need, for example, for your content. Depending on what you're writing, now being able to fetch out the entities that are directly related to that content that you're writing, and knowing how and when to use those entities and where to get those entities from, and how to write your content to rank well on Google, or how to write your content to be able to capture the heart and mind of the readers. That is the next what we are going to capture as part of our next lecture. Thank you. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to the risk part of things in this class, unfortunately, but I would like to stop here. And in the next class, we will take over, we'll talk about some of the risks that are involved. And that's actually where we talk about hallucinations and how to prevent hallucinations in writing and stuff. So thank you guys for coming. If you have questions, please ask now. The floor is open. Okay, yes. So there is a question here that says, can't conversational prompting be mistaken for chain of thought by the AI? No, so conversational prompting is more of like, consider it as a conversation versus a chain of thought. You could, of course, interchangeably, depending on the context, they could be the same, right? But in terms of description, they are different. Conversation in the sense that you're just having a regular conversation and you're trying to use AI as a company. Imagine there are chatbots today that are basically there as a way to comfort some people, to help people. For example, if you are using the customer support desk now, you are most likely using a conversational, you're engaging with a conversational AI, and there are sets of conversational prompts that have been built behind the scenes, so that when you go to like a customer support of some banks or maybe of some international businesses now, when you type to them and you see the computer, you would think that a human being that is responding to you, but basically what's responding to you is like a computer behind the scenes. There is a set of prompts that have been crafted to get your information that you have requested. Those prompts then prompt the AI backend, get the information and feed it back to you. Basically, that's all what conversational AI is probably doing for you in that scenario. But in the case of chain of thought, a chain of thought in this case is what we have just done in the example of trying to find or write about the history of Nigeria. Yeah, somebody said about FAQ. Yeah, more or less like a conversational AI, set of FAQs. Back then, in those days when you have chatbots, they're basically programmable chatbots where the answers have already been written. But in this case, the answers have not been, when you're using generative AI, the answers have not been written, but the information about the company is already on the system, and the AI knows all that information. So when you ask the question, AI is basically querying the information it knows about the company and using that information to respond to you appropriately based on just what you want to know. Any other question? I'll be happy to take. I am waiting for more questions. Any more questions? Okay. So thank you guys. It's been a very nice and interesting time to chat with you all. I believe that this session has been informative. Please let me know if it has. Thank you for coming. And that will be all for now. And we will continue in the next session by Saturday. All right. Goodbye. And thank you and God bless. But if you have any question or any query, I will be, hanging around here and just waiting for someone says, please list the constraint prompt again. Constraint prompt, I thought that I provided it here. Okay. All right, so let me provide you with that constraint prompt if you're still here. Let's quickly go there and just copy the constraints. Okay, yeah, so I hope you're still around. Okay, the Justina. Okay, yes, you're still around. All right. So this is just what I did. And usually when I write constraint prompts like this and I'm trying to limit, notice how I did it. In the subsequent class, when we start actually, we will do something about writing a complete article. I will take you guys through that process. We'll walk through from the start of the article to the end, and I will ask everybody to pick a topic and write for themselves. So, for example, writing an article from the beginning, how you get your ideas about the article, how you write your prompts and everything. But if you follow the logic and the process that I have shared with you so far, you wouldn't have any problem with writing those prompts. But I will show you, like, see how I write, how I put the articles in a bracket, the missing entities that I want to add to it, and then I'm saying maintain exact same article length. So I've written the article, I want to keep the length of that article. I'm saying do not reduce the length. I want you to just add these missing entities into the article, right? So something like that. When you are, something to note is when you're writing articles, always watch out for key entities. Always watch out for key entities. And key entities are very important because they are the fuel. they are like the juice. If you are, like, they're like fluid. Just imagine yourself as a runner and you need fluid to continue to run, or imagine a vehicle that needs for that. Those entities, remember that we talked about named entities. The AI understands natural language based on named entities recognition. And you can always ask AI to give you similar entities that are similar to your topic. You can see them as, in the SEO world, we usually talk about keywords. But at the advent of AI, now we know that it's something more than just keywords, and those are entities. So aside from just looking for keywords that are very important to your articles, there's also something called entities. And so in the next class, when we start really, when I will talk about how to avoid hallucination and all of that, I would also be talking about, wrapping entities and plugging them into your article and letting AI do that job. So we will find entities, then
Okay,
we will
sir.
into your article.
Are you
Are you asking a question, Helen? Okay. All right. I hope I answered your question, Nwokedi Justina. So anyone that has any more question, please let me know, that has to do with writing and stuff. And also, if you want to also let me know, especially the ones that are still around, let me know, am I meeting your, is this course or this training meeting your expectations? Cordelia, do you want to, I see that you're still here. If you are still here, do you want to talk? Do you think this is meeting your expectations? Do you think you are learning more towards becoming a better writer?
Yes, that's very true. Like, I don't know if you see my last, if you saw my last comment, I said the whole thing is beginning to come together now. You know, I don't know the expectation that I had because I wouldn't say I knew so much about it. I've
Oh,
been able to use AI to be able to write a few things, but with today's lecture, I realized that some of the answers I wanted, you know, and I couldn't get. Now I understand that there's something called persona. Like I have to be the one to input what I want in the for the AI to go in the direction that I want. So it's not
I
like the AI is all knowing and all seeing. You know, I
abs-
have to do some of my own work to be able to make it, you know, bring out exactly what I want. And for me, that's new knowledge, and I'm really excited. You know,
yeah.
and I know that as we go further, I'll get better in it. Thank you,
Yes.
sir. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the next part of what we're going to be talking about in the next class when we're doing actually writing is that there are two types of persona that you're going to be using. You are going to be using the persona of the person that is writing the article, and you're also going to talk about the persona of the person that wants to read the article. Remember that in your custom instruction, let me open that custom instruction. You put something here called, uh, we talked about the flesh reading ease score. This is, you may not see this in many places, but it's one of those things that you want to give your AI, right? You need to talk about the persona. In fact, if you could say specifically who your persona is, for example, if you want to write, if your persona is an author, an American author who writes about love and relationship, if you know the name of that author and the name is popular and has been writing, for example, since the 19th century, I would on maybe 18th, 19th, yeah, 19th century, for example, or say from the 20th century, make sure that that person is a popular name. And then you can use that person as your persona. The other thing which I know that Claude does very well is that I could get the article written by that specific persona. If I know someone that has written an article, or let's say I've written an article before that I really loved so much that I liked the style of my writing, I liked everything, I could upload it for AI and say, I want you to replicate this writing style, right? So AI will basically break down your sentence structure and will use the combination, how your tokens are combined, how your sentences follow each other, how the words follow each other. Will use the combination of all of that and use it as a style, adopt it as a style of your writing. And therefore, anything that is writing for you will be written in that format. That is also possible. So there are different ways of setting your persona. You could set it generalistically, or you could set it specifically by uploading a specific type of document that you've written before, or that specific persona has written before, and upload it for the EA to now use, the AI to now use as a way to process um, your new content. All right. So I would say, uh, so I would say this is the this will be the end of everything. And thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate your time. And goodbye and God bless.